Alright guys, so today on the table we have Vestax PDX 2300. This is a very rare turntable. I actually just purchased a pair of these off of a buddy of mine, and once I got them home, I cleaned them up. I started to notice that I was having issues with this power switch, and I could hear it when I first tried to turn it on. I wasn't getting any power at all. Turned it off, turned it on, turned it off, turned it on, and then I started hearing some shorting in the switch. So we need to replace that switch, and that switch finally came in, so I'm going to do that. So other than that, right now it is working. As you can see, I am getting power, but the other thing that I'm noticing is the torque on this turntable is a little slow with the startup. See that? And my start is all the way up, so you know, it's as tight as it's going to be, so it should be like an instant start. It shouldn't be that. So I'm going to see, that'd be slower. I need to figure out why it's doing that as well, but we'll get into that once we get into this. So first things first, we got to take off all the moving parts and removable parts. So let's get that going. So firstly, we're going to turn off the table. We're going to unplug the table, and then we're going to take off the needle, the head shell. We're going to take off the weight, which is here in the back. So we need to remove that. Okay. Then what we need to do is we need to take off the platter. There's two little screws here. I already unscrewed those. Now, a lot of the times this platter can be super difficult to get off. So you need to get your fingers underneath here, and then you can really push down on this. If it still doesn't come off, then you need to get something like a screwdriver here. Then you can put the screwdriver on top like this, and that'll give you a little more extra, I guess, leverage, and then you could push, and then it'll come up like that. I seen another DJ online do that, and I forget the guy's name, but shout out to you for showing me that little trick to get this platter off, because this thing was almost impossible to get off. So now that we got all of that off, we need to flip this over. Some people use a pillow. Some people actually get a box. They'll cut a hole in the box so that it'll so that the motor will go into the hole and the tone arm itself will hang off the side. Me, what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to try to just use one of these turntable covers. I know it's not the same design, but it should work. Oh, I almost forgot to take out the target light. It should work. So I'm going to try and flip that over without any major damage happening here. We'll see what happens. If this doesn't work good, then I'll figure something else out. Alright, so I got it flipped over. It fits in there good enough. So we need to unscrew all of these screws here, here, down here in the back, and here on the sides. I believe they are all the same size. Now that we got all the screws out, this plate should just lift straight off. There you go. So the switch is right here. So we basically just need to pop that switch out, and let's see, how are we gonna do that? Not sure yet, but we will find out. We'll figure it out. This is the motor. A lot of the times what you can do is just get a screwdriver and make sure that all of these screws are tight, because a lot of the times these screws can get loose, and if they do get loose, then see, like that, see, loose. If they get loose, then the motor can have issues. It can start to sag down a little bit, and then the platter won't sit flush, and it'll start spinning awkwardly, and it can start grinding and things of that nature. So make sure that all of your screws are screwed down tight. You know, you don't want to strip the screw, but just make sure that they're tight enough. And let's get this switch out of here. Alright guys, so here's the switch right here. Okay, we need to get this little guy out of here. So I think all we really have to do is just kind of push it through, just like that, and it will just come right through. On the back here, here's the wires. It's here, and then it goes to this plug right here. On the board it actually says switch. So we can pull that like that. If we cut this zip tie, we'll be able to pull that out completely, which makes this even easier. So let's be careful with that tone arm. Cut this, and I do have some more zip ties. Okay, so that's cut. Boom. That is out. Okay guys, so here's the new switch. Now this switch is a 10 amp 125 AC or 6 amp 250 AC, so it can handle either or. Okay, it will look a little different, kind of the same, but you can see like the paint's already starting to wear off here, where as opposed to this one doesn't. So what we need to do is we need to desolder the wires from this switch, and then we need to connect them to these pins here. And just remember, it's the positive on the bottom pin and negative is on the top pin. So that's how we need to wire this up. So let's get this desoldered first. So just desoldered this one, and now the wire's coming out. Now we need to do the other side. So let's get that going. And remember, it's the top pin. So if we're looking at these guys with the white button here, so let's say the white button is at the top. When we flip it, it's going to be the pin closest to us. That's going to be the red. Okay. So let's get this white cord, our cable, out of there. Put a little more solder here on the tip. And then let's get this desoldering wick. This just makes it that much easier to get all the solder off this contact here, or this pin. Okay. So now you should be able to see this white one just comes right off. Perfect. Okay. So let's solder the new ones on. What I'm very surprised to see is that there's no shrink tubing or nothing around this, but I guess it's not necessary. It's not really going to hit anything or short out on anything since the whole chassis of the PDX is plastic. But anyway, since the wire's in there, all we have to do now is just add a little solder here, just like that. I honestly think they put a little too much in my opinion, but once that cools down, boom, you're set there. Now we can turn this around. We can put our white wire in through these holes here. Just like that. Clean the tip. A little bit of solder here. Just like that. Boom. Set. Good to go. So, there you go. The new switch is soldered, and now all we got to do is feed it through the turntable again and then reconnect it. Alright guys, so let's put the platter back on for now. We're just going to line up those holes just like that, and then we can screw the screws back in. You know, they don't have to be super tight, but I'll tell you what, after I tightened down the fastening screws to the motor, the actual motor was kind of moving. Once I tightened it down, it was, you know, moving up and down the whole motor. Now it's nice and sturdy, so it's not doing that anymore. So let's plug it in and then we'll turn it on. Plugged in. Oh, look at that. On, off. So good. Got power. Okay. Let's put this back to ultra pitch. Off, 0, 0, and then let's hit the start stop. We'll see if hopefully this starts up faster. And it's still a little slow. Okay, so that means that something else is going on here with the motor. Alright guys, so this is my second table, and like I said, the reason why we open them up, we check stuff out, is just because, you know, these tables are so old that again, these screws can get loose, they can fall, you know, completely come unscrewed. The motor itself, I had to tighten down all these screws again because the motor was a little loose. This screw right here actually holds this bracket down for the transformer itself, so you need to tighten that back up. I was wondering where that screw was when I took the platter off, and that's what happened. It was just loose. It fell through, so I just want to check all these contacts here and see if they need to be resoldered, if there's any cracked solder or anything like that. Alright guys, so I'm just going to clean off this tip here. Get a little bit of solder here. And we're just gonna touch these and get a little more solder back on these contacts here. Just re-wet them because this one looks like it's pretty oxidized, so there we go. Those look good. Now let's see, and I can tell somebody was in here beforehand because these wires here are loose. So let me zoom out. So see these little wires here, they're loose. They should actually be, sorry, they should be held in where this little piece of foam is. So let's put those back where they're supposed to go. Check these wires, be real gentle. Everything looks good there. Alright, so what I'm going to try doing here is I'm going to take this board out. Alright guys, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take out this main board here. I'm going to swap it out and put it into the other turntable, and I'll see if by swapping this board that gets rid of the slower startup time for the motor, and I'll see if that fixes the issue. So I got to unplug this plug here, which goes to the main board. This wire here, which goes to the remote plug on the side, and this plug here, this goes directly to the pitch control. And then there is a ribbon cable, and that's for the display. So to get that out of there, I think you just have to slide it out. Sometimes there's a release on these, but I don't think. Oh yeah. So you gotta slide this down just a little and maybe up, and it should come right out. There you go. Just like that. And I'm gonna actually clean this up too. There's a little bit of dirt and whatnot in here, so might as well clean this board off while I got it out. Alright guys, so I have both boards out now. This is my good board out of my good turntable. This is the board with the issue, so I did mark it to let me know that this is the okay board. But from what I was seeing, I was like, you know what, I'm going to start with just the potentiometer, because you know these things do get used quite a bit and they can wear down over time. I did notice some deviation between the two. Now the main thing with this one when I hook this up and touch the pins, I get 636, but watch what happens when I push this down. See how it drops? And it drops to 476. Watch this one. Okay. 544, and when I push it down, it doesn't drop. So I'm thinking this potentiometer might be potentially my issue. Alright guys, so I found that issue with the potentiometer where if I kind of push it down a little bit, I end up getting some fluctuations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take this little guy out and see if I can possibly clean it. Taking potentiometers apart is a pain in the butt, and they're very, very hard to take apart and put back together. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm definitely going to desolder from the board. If not, then I'm just going to have to try to find this potentiometer, which is going to be even harder to do because I don't even know if they make these anymore. But let's get it taken out. So when you flip this over, remember it's going to be this guy here. So this is your R11. So R11, flip it over, it's going to be this one here. You can mark it with a marker if you need to. So I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the tip here. Okay, just like that. And we're going to take this desoldering braid, and then we're just going to go over the top of these 3 pins. And right now it really doesn't matter because we're trying to get the solder off the board, so we can go across all 3 pins if need be. Now when we're resoldering these back to the board, that's when we're going to have, you know, we got to be careful because we don't want to bridge any of these contacts, because then that can lead to problems that you don't want. So anyway, I'm going to try to get as much of this solder off of here as possible. This desoldering wick, it works really well. There we go. Let's see, so it's still pulling off solder. So the thing about solder is it only goes where the heat is. So this copper braid is perfect because it pulls it directly off. Okay, so it looks like those are all loose. And that's what you want. You can go back over it again just to make sure. Okay, there we go. There we go. If you need to, you can come back to the back side. There, there, and there. Okay, so those should be desoldered now. And now we just got to take this off, and these are the other 2 pins, and these are just grounds right here. So let's see what we got. So it's going to pull solder off, pull, and usually with these ones they saturate these ones, put a lot of solder on these. Okay, and it looks like that one's in pretty good shape now. Looks pretty loose there. Okay, so it's directly on the board, and it will grab as much of that solder off the board as possible. Okay, now if you notice that it's not grabbing anymore, you can just take a little bit of solder, put it back on here, which sounds counterintuitive at first, but it actually isn't. It helps. There we go. So let's see what happens here. Still pretty warm. Okay. So now all we gotta do is do a little bit of a wiggle here. Okay. Looks like there's still a little bit of there we go. So we don't want to force anything. So if it still isn't coming out, then we just got to be real careful with this. Keep wiggling and bam, it is out of the board, and no damage to the board. Everything looks good. Cool. So there's no way I'm gonna be able to open this up. No way. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with this. I don't know. For now, I might even just swap this potentiometer over to this side, just because I know this one's good, and then put the bad one on this side, because this is just for the brake. You know, because I don't really mess with the brake. You know, I keep it as instant stop. So I don't know, I might do that too, just to see if that is my issue. So it just slides right back in there like that. And then I'm going to solder this back in. It should be fairly easy to do. Just a little bit of solder here. A little bit here. A little here. A little bit here. Like that, and we'll go on this side here, just like that. All right. So I got it all put back together, all the wires in the right spots, to the lamp, 3345 start switch. This one's the motor. This one goes to the main board. This one goes to the remote plug, and then this one goes to your pitch control here. So all of those are in the right way. Swapped out the potentiometers. We'll see what happens. Alright guys, so we gotta put the platter back on. So we gotta match up these platter holes with these here, and then we'll put the screws in. We gotta make sure that those holes are lined up right. Make sure that those screws are gonna go in right. You don't want to turn it on without the screws in there, because that could potentially mess up the calibration of the motor, from what I understand. So you don't want to mess around with that. Everything seems to be back in order. Let's turn this little guy on. You're gonna see it's on. Okay, we're gonna put everything at 0, hit start. Let's turn this brake. Let's try with the ultra pitch up. That looks like that was the issue. It was a bad potentiometer switch. So that's awesome. Super simple fix, I guess. If the hard part is now I do have to find another potentiometer switch for the brake, you know, just so that it is fixed correctly. I don't really mess around with the brake adjust too much, but that did fix my issue, which is great. That's awesome. So, man, good stuff. I just got to put it all back together. Alright, so hopefully that helps you out. If you ever have any issues where you're starting to notice that your platter's acting a little weird, it could potentially just be that the potentiometer is wearing down, you know, because over time, you know, they do start to wear away on the inside. So that very well could be your problem, the speed adjust potentiometer. So hopefully, once again, this does help some of you out. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave comments below and I'll try to answer them as best I can. But as always, thanks for watching and thanks for the continued support. And I'll keep the videos coming when I have things to fix. Peace.